thank you for tuning in to Physiology Friday. Today I'm actually going to be talking about skin. I've had a few requests actually of the people that come to me that use the Saluma device and asking how that works. So actually I thought it makes more sense to talk about skin and how important that is and how that works before I talk about how the device works. So just to help me out, I'm an artist of the face, not an artist on paper, but I will try to explain skin. So it's the largest organ of the body, not only in size but obviously in mass as well, and it's really important because it holds us all together. Now skin is actually split into 3 layers. You have your epidermis, which is the top layer, your dermis, which is the middle layer, and your hypodermis, or it's also known as the subcutaneous layer, which is the bottom layer. The hypodermis, I always just think of low, so if something's hypo, it's low down, it's low blood sugar if you're hypoglycemic, that kind of thing, so it's a nice easy way to remember it. So here is a cross-section of the skin I did earlier, so I'm just going to show you where the epidermis lies within that. So the epidermis is this very top layer of skin. So I'm just doing my arrow. So that's your epidermis. Then the dermis layer, and you guessed it, hypodermis is the bottom layer. So first of all, I shall pop us some hair follicles on. So the epidermis here is actually then split into it's split into 5. So you've got the corneum, the lucidum, the granulsum, the spinosum and the basale, and they're all stratums. So stratum just means layer. So if you think you've got a stratosphere in space, which is a layer of space, the epidermis is split into 5 stratums, 5 layers. But it's not so much the layers of the epidermis that you need to think about, it's about the cells that work within the epidermis. So I'm just going to get this, trying to angle myself on the camera, it's not as easy as I'd hoped. So let's just get this epidermis. The reason that I've left that bit blank is this is a gland, and that's the sebaceous gland. So it's a nice oily gland because your skin is actually made up of 95% of keratinocytes, which means that the skin is impermeable to water. So the next thing I'm going to draw is into the dermis, you have your sweat gland. Okay. So obviously you've got lots of these, this is just a really small cross section. So your sweat gland is there, your sebaceous gland is there. So just check you can see that. So the sweat gland, if it produces excess sweat and perspiration, some people like to have Botox, say into the palms of their hands or their armpits, and the reason for that is that Botox disrupts the signal to that gland. So if you think of the gland as a light switch, and the Botox is sort of going to disrupt the signal to the gland, which is the wire. So that's your sweat gland. Coming up from the hypodermis area is your nerve and its receptors. So that's your nerve, and then you've got receptors that are here. Now, I just want you to note that the receptors don't actually go into the epidermis. So when you get hurt, it's because of pressure on the receptors rather than the receptors themselves being in pain. And then this area here, the subcutaneous layer, this is where you mainly have your collagen and your elastin, and you also have, just draw them on, you've got your arterioles, which then lead up here. Obviously very basic drawing, but these arterioles then have your capillaries in your dermis, which is why when we inject filler into the dermis, you have to be careful not to occlude a vessel, because it does have vessels within this area. So the hypodermis is mainly made up of lots and lots of adipose fat cells, collagen and elastin, and it's basically what gives the skin a nice stretch and bump, you know, it gives you a really nice stretch. Now, ladies actually have 10% more subcutaneous fat than men, which is often why ladies tend to sort of be deemed more beautiful, because they've got more collagen and more elastin in the skin. Now, the problem with that is basically once ladies hit sort of mid to late 40s and the menopause, there is quite a big drop in the collagen levels, so then they can suddenly seem to feel like they look a lot older. Whereas men, although they have 10% less, it's more confined, and so basically they tend to have a higher density of collagen, so they age sort of, they age slower and more sort of gracefully, you could say, and ladies just suddenly start to age once the menopause hits. And then I've just noticed that I haven't actually drawn on, you've got a muscle here, which attaches to the hair follicle, and that muscle actually is what causes you to have goosebumps, so that makes your hair stand on end, and you can call that the erecti pili. So basically, yes, in Latin you guessed it, erecti, stand up straight, so the erection word comes from standing up straight. So yeah, erecti supercilii. So when you say get a spot, for example, that protrudes here, the pain from the spot is that lots and lots of macrophages that have been made in this area, I kind of think of macrophages like Pac-Men, and they clean up your bacteria, any excess proteins, any excess oil that the sebaceous gland has made, and they're like your Kiminagi of your skin, and they just clean. And if you sort of think of the dermis as the McDonald of the skin, this is where basically you can see the majority of stuff happens. This is where your sort of excess oils are. So if the macrophages don't give a full clean, that's when you actually then get a pustule. And when a spot hurts, when you squeeze it, it's actually the receptors under the skin that cause the pain, because as you can see, you don't have any sensory nerve endings or receptors in the epidermis. So here is a diagram I prepared earlier. I'm really struggling to see in the light, so I hope that you can actually see my diagrams. It's kind of reflecting off my camera. So, like I said, as you get older, you'll have less collagen and elasticity in this hypodermis area. So that causes your wrinkle. Okay. Now, if you were to inject a filler into that area, it actually wouldn't cause much harm, but you wouldn't get much effect from it. Just means that you've gone too deep with the filler. So as a dermal filler suggests, you are injecting it into the dermis. So you've got your epidermis, which is where you see your wrinkle, and then you've got your dermis. So your needle comes in, you've got your capillaries, so that's why you draw back on your needle, you make sure that you don't have any blood in that syringe, and then you've put your bolus of filler into that dermal layer, which then pushes up your wrinkle, which means that then you get the straightness here. So your epidermal layer has the dip, the filler, the hyaluronic acid, which is actually a lot of collagen is made of hyaluronic acid, which is why you don't have a reaction to hyaluronic acid, goes into the dermis, which pushes up the dermis, which then pushes up the epidermis, and that is how a filler works. So I'm just going to take us back to the recap of today's session. So your skin is split into three main areas: your epidermis, your dermis and your hypodermis. The epidermis actually has 5 regions within itself. The main reason of the epidermis is for protection and to keep us waterproof, and it has cells which then attach to the dermis. So the dermis is where we have our hair follicles, we have our sweat glands, we have capillaries, we have our sensory nerve endings, receptors, and our nerve which goes down into the hypodermis. In the hypodermis we have collagen, elastin, it's really strong, it's what gives your skin its subtlety, and that's the lower layer of the skin. Then when you have fillers, you have a wrinkle, you inject the needle into the dermis, make sure that you haven't hit a blood vessel, put your filler in, which pushes the surface of the skin up and gets rid of the wrinkle. So I really hope that that has helped. I don't know if I've kind of made much sense on that, but with regards to physiology, I do like to keep things simple because that's how I understand it personally. So if anyone does have any questions, please let me know. Next week I'm hoping to talk about the Soluma light and how LED therapy helps the skin, helps to reduce acne, helps to increase collagen levels and elasticity. It's an absolutely amazing device and I love it. So on that note, I would just like to say thank you to everybody for watching, and I'll hopefully see you all after lockup. As always, if you wanted to book a consultation with myself, please do. I can do online consultations at the moment, and then I can get the stocking ready for you for when you're ready to book in after lockdown. So stay safe, stay well, stay protected, stay at home, and I can't wait to see you all again. Bye!